When I came in to open up one morning, there you were with your head half in the toilet. Your hair was in the toilet water. Disgusting.
I told you I had the flu.
I said my piece, Chrissy.
Yes, I said my piece. Welcome to Cut to Black, a Sopranos Sit Down. I am Jim Scampoli, and I've seen every episode of The Sopranos.
I'm Jacob Burrows, and I've seen 49 episodes of The Sopranos. And this episode is called The Strong Silent Type, which is a great descriptor of what you and I aren't, Jim, because we're going to talk the shit out of this one. Who wrote it and made it, though, with the pictures on the screen and all that?
Well, this was a story by David Chase. The teleplay was written by Terrence Winter, Robin Green, and Mitchell Burgess, which basically it's like the Mount Rushmore of Sopranos writers. It's the Avengers team. This was directed by Alan Taylor, who is directing the upcoming Sopranos prequel movie as well. And he also did direct a few episodes of Game of Thrones, including the episode Beyond the Wall.
Ooh, interesting.
Quite a pedigree.
Yeah, indeed. And I mean, just to give an overview of this episode, I watched it before you, and then when you started watching it, you messaged me like, "Oh shit, is this the intervention episode?" And I was like, "Yeah, man. This is another great episode, I think, following on the previous one here."
Absolutely, yeah. The intervention, for some reason, I don't know why, but in my memory, this episode happened way earlier. But it is one of the things. One of the first things I think of when I think of The Sopranos, because it's such a classic Sopranos version of a thing. Like Intervention. I mean, I don't know at the time if Intervention was a show, but it seems to be more common trope nowadays. But The Sopranos throws it on its ear, and it ends with stomping someone into the ground.
Yes, of course, in a non-judgmental way. We do open up with, Christopher doing what he does. He's watched, like we mentioned last week, you're never going to watch any current shows in this one. You're watching an old black and white film about, ain't no bear going to catch me, and then the bear catches you, but it's a gorilla. He doesn't give a shit. He's just shooting up and sitting on dogs. That's what he's doing what he does, in other words.
Yeah, now because I wrote Little Rascals, and then I looked it up, and it's Our Gang, which I guess is the Little Rascals, so I was right. Now, I didn't know that they were also Our Gang, but why would I know that stuff? But yes, that's what he's watching on the TV. He does sit down and squish Cosette. Now the question does remain, does Cosette go on the board? Come on, Pyomai goes on the board, but no
Yes,
Cosette.
Pyomai goes on the board. I don't care about Cosette. Now, if you want to fight me on it, at Jacob Burrows. No, we can't put, we can do it if you want to, but my initial reaction to Pyomai is this is an extreme exception. It's the most important character that's died in the show so far. And Cosette, look, he sits on Cosette. That's not even enough for Adriana to leave him. I was like, yeah, if I've dated someone maybe 4 or 5 years, they sit on my dog and kill him, I'm still probably like done, but it's not even enough for that. It's just the start of the episode. It's just like the cold open. It's almost like a comedic little punch line to start the show with. So I don't know, Jim, do you think we should count it?
I'm fine with not counting it, but I think there's an argument there because I feel like she does mention that she packs her bags and she's ready to go, but Tony says something like, "Don't do anything you'll regret."
No. That's after he slaps her around.
No, you're right. Absolutely. No, you know what? You're right. You're absolutely right. Although I would argue that it is kind of a major
that's true.
Inciting incident here. But no, I think you're right. We can leave it off. I think Pyomai was quite an exception. It would take a lot to bump an animal, like, and maybe it'd have to be a tone, like if one of the ducks died or something. We knew that it was one of the ducks in the pilot. It maybe needs the Tony connection, but I'm with you. I think we won't put it on the board.
Yeah, it is awful though. Like, it's really like a great way to, because obviously Christopher's been fucking up, but last episode, I mean, he did help Tony out. There was almost a sense that, yeah, maybe he's going to better his ways. But no, he's got further to go down the hole before anything good is going to come out of this. And indeed, he does so, starting out strong with an inciting incident, as you mentioned, by killing the dog accidentally. Such a sad little dog.
Yeah.
A bigger dog. That's the real lesson to get out of this. Bigger dogs, better.
Now we have Benny. Benny shows up, and Carmilla's disappointed because it's not Furio arriving to pick up Tony does notice that Carmela's cut her hair, which I thought was interesting because I remember when we were discussing the premiere of this season, I remember you mentioned that you thought there was going to be a reveal that Carmela had short hair, like when she's reading the book to AJ or reading the news, I should say, the newspaper. And so you were kind of right on the money, just a little bit, just 9 episodes early, because now Carmela has cut her hair. And as we know, I mean, I'm not a woman or a teenage girl or anything, but I know from movies and TV that when women cut their hair short and do something drastic with their hair, something is up, and you should be on high alert, and you should be wondering what you did wrong.
Well, or if she's changing her look for someone else, maybe someone who's coming back from Italy. Now, it looks good. I'll say that. It's a good hair choice, I think, for her. Nice to see her switch it up. Does make her look younger. I think Tony says that, right? Or something along those lines.
Yeah, I believe. But she's also just kind of, I mean, I guess partially being disappointed that Furio's not there. Like, she's not really giving Tony anything. Like, she's, I guess it's kind of a constant Carmela thing that she's just upset with Tony, I suppose.
Yeah, of course. Speaking of being upset with your significant other, Adriana comes home. The TV's still on, showing some other old stuff. Are there just channels where they show like old movies and TV shows? Is that a thing in the US? And those are the free channels, maybe? Maybe that's why they're always on? Yeah.
Maybe there's no royalties involved. I believe from what I'm looking up here, they're watching the 1966 movie, The Oscar.
Oh.
Which it's American drama. Film features an impressive cast and crew. Of course it does. Movie star Frankie Fain is about to hear if he won the Best Acting Oscar. And his friend Jaime Kelly reminisces about Fain's struggle to the top.
So in this clip, a guy pulls out a knife and there's an extreme zoom in on it, and I thought it was like a Western or something. So clearly I was wrong on that one because it's an extreme like knife. Interesting. These must all be public domain, right? Is that why they're doing this?
It's got to be, right? I'm sure there are. I'm sure most of these are things that David Chase watched or grew up watching as well. He's pretty big on that type of stuff also.
True. So she comes in looking for the dog. But hey, must have crawled in there for warmth, got suffocated. Dumb little dog, right? Oh, so stupid. This
must have crawled under there to get warm. Oh my god. Yeah. What a horrible thing too.
How long have I said she shouldn't be on the furniture? Oh my god. So this is a real Christopher. They really make Christopher a real piece of shit here because I'm already like fuck this guy, but it gets worse later in the episode. He offers to get her another dog. She doesn't want another dog.
Yeah, that's the last thing you want to hear after your beloved pet dies is we could get a new one. So then what? Christopher brings in a package to the Bing. Tony's there, and he's kind of playing the old so no one's heard from Ralph, huh? Oh my god, where is this Ralph character? Can you guys believe it?
I'll call him again. And we do hear the voice message again, the same one from the last episode. And him and Christopher just exchange a look. He just puffing on his cigar like, answering machine again. Weird. And then there's this delivery. Christopher looks like shit, by the way, when he comes in there. It's very obvious that something's wrong with this guy.
Yes.
But even more obvious, something's wrong with Tony because he pulls out this painting and then he fucking flips, runs out of there. Now, they do know that the guy's horse did die, but this reaction is enough to stir some suspicion in the crew.
Yeah, for Tony trying to, not let anything on that he was involved in Ralph's murder, this is quite an obvious, what are you doing? Because he looks at the painting, walks out, calls from the road to be like, get rid of that fucking picture.
Never want to see it again. Burn it. Yeah, and I mean, Paulie's reaction is great. I mean, just the shot of him storming out and Paulie's in the shot that's a forfeit. That's our money. And he grabs the money from the pool game they're having. That's great as well. I mean, I complain about Paulie. He's obviously a weirdo, but I have missed Paulie Walnuts. It's so great to have him back fully and throwing these lines in. And I mean, this whole episode with him is fantastic.
Well, and also, I don't know, I forget if we mentioned this or not when we watched the Christopher episode. I mean, I think we did kind of mention that it felt a little out of character for Silvio, the way he was reacting. And thinking about it, that totally would have been Paulie if there wasn't, you know, an issue with the actor where he couldn't be involved in production. Like the way the reacting about the Columbus parade and the Italian heritage, that totally would have been a Paulie story for sure. But yeah, I'm with you. It's so nice to have Paulie back with his little asides and just his reactions and moments. It feels like we're more back at home with the Sopranos with Paulie back in the mix.
You're so right with that because, I mean, Silvio at the start of the season when they were having a little cat and mouse game, that felt like Silvio. But then the Columbus thing, because like his rant about our people did this and it's a disgrace. Like, can you imagine Paulie doing those lines? Would have been even better. This does lead us into, I believe, a scene here where, we do see Furio coming home. First off, some stock footage of a plane landing, and then he's in a cab there. And seeing all these American flags, and he's like, who am I?
And it's a great, it's such a, I mean, I don't know if it's like this in other places with cabbies, but it's still to this day such a common thing. You get in a cabbie and it's just this guy on his Bluetooth, like mumbling, and you're kind of like, huh? Like, because you think maybe he's saying something to you at first, and you realize, oh no, he's just in this conversation. He doesn't give a shit that you're there.
Not quite it. I will tell a very quick story of when I moved to Dublin, landed, and I was like in line for the cab stand and really excited about I'm starting a new cool life in Dublin. I'm gonna talk bullshit with this cab driver and all. And I'm like getting in, saying it like, oh great, I'm going to this place in Drumcondra, and he's like, what? And I'm like, oh, it's here. The address is here. I showed him the address. He's like, this is not Drumcondra. I'm like, okay, well, this is where I need to go. Like, this is, Google said it. So, and he's like, you have GPS? I'm like, no, I just arrived. I don't have internet on my phone. And then he's like, he hands me his phone, and I have to put in the address on his phone, hand it back, and then we drive in complete silence. And then we arrive at the place, and I'm like, then he's like, oh, it's this much. And I'm like, okay, I'm trying to use my card. And he's like, cash only. I'm like, well, I don't have any, so I don't know what we're doing now. I have none cash, man.
Welcome to Ireland. Welcome to Ireland.
Yeah, exactly. That was a fun one. I imagine he's feeling something similar there, Furio.
Which is interesting, though, because later on he kind of says that he doesn't feel at home. I mean, I guess he doesn't feel at home either place now, because he mentions like he doesn't feel at home in Italy either. But anyways, we cut into Patsy, Silvio, and Albert. I always remember Albert just as the guy that repeats things, although I don't know if he doesn't really repeat things in this scene or not. I do like that we quickly get to the point that everyone kind of suspects Tony, rather than playing around where they slowly realize it. Because the way Tony's reacting, especially to the painting and the timing that Ralph disappears like right after the horse dies, it makes sense. These are not dummies. But yeah, again, this is kind of more positioning Silvio as a potential threat to Tony, because even Albert says, you know, if he whacked Ralph over a horse, that'd be the first guy in line to clip him or whatever.
Yes, and I love that, because that puts into perspective, like, I feel like, you know, with my limited knowledge, I've not seen the rest of the show, it feels like that makes the beginning of the season make more sense, because Silvio never showed any type of antagonism, and there it was kind of showing like, no, this is where I am, and this is where you are, and we have to have something here. And I love the comment, because they lay it out so clearly that if he were to have done this, Silvio would be the first to, like, clip him. I don't think that's completely true, but, like, he wouldn't take kindly to that. So he's already shown now that there are some things that he will not accept. So the start of the season set that up perfectly, and I feel like I don't know what's happening, but as far as I'm concerned, it could be like Silvio versus Tony next season. Could be it, which is exciting in a way, because I did say last episode, like, now everything's going to change now, and I don't know how, but this is interesting to me.
Yeah, we're starting to at least see some effects, or things might be happening. Then we see Tony visiting Justin, Ralphie's son, and I mean, it's like, I don't know what to read off of his face, because he's staring at him. It doesn't seem like there's really sympathy, or I don't know if it's just that Tony like thinking about what he did. Is he having second thoughts, or like, what's your read here?
My read is this is him like same as giving money to Big Pussy's wife. Like, I
Yeah.
killed your husband, now I got to give you money. So he's there to do that, and that's why he's looking at that kid with no emotion. He's waiting for her to show up so he can give the envelope because it's a weight off his mind, even though it's obviously like that's not how morality works. But to him, at least, I gave you the money now, so I paid for murdering your husband, and now we go our separate ways.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Like here's this liability I have. All right, I killed his dad. Now I can hand this envelope over, and all right, have a good life.
It's probably like the equivalent to one envelope that Ralphie got him, So
Yeah.
it's not even that much, Because if it was too much, it would arouse suspicions as well. So it's just you need a little something. You need a little something.
And then Furio shows up, and it's I don't quite buy. I feel like they cheat a little bit here with Furio. The way Furio is kind of so invested now. I feel like they played it pretty gray area for like at least the first 5 or 6 episodes, where it felt like Carmilla could just be doing another Carmilla thing. But now we get to a point where Furio is like crying in the car over Carmilla. And I don't know, maybe are we supposed to be reading into it that it's compounded by the fact that his father just passed away? I mean, I know he uses it as an excuse, but I don't know. Is this just the unrequited love that we're seeing?
Yeah, I do. I suppose I do understand why they did that way, because we're in her brain, but the scenes are still there. The scenes of her coming to visit him, and them having their dance party at like his housewarming and all of that did all still happen. And Furio has been such a stone face that it's like the painting on the wall later in the episode. You can project whatever feelings you want into him. Like, the fact that we haven't seen it doesn't mean that like he's been every time I've seen him, he has also seen Carmela. So that's why I kind of buy it, but I totally see what you mean. If there had been one scene earlier, maybe of him looking at her, just one scene, it may have sort of built it up a bit better.
Yeah, and I guess it's another version of them playing with our expectations a bit, because we're just so used to Carmilla having her little crushes
and structures and all that. Yeah.
So yeah, and I love when he gives the presents in Meadows, it says what, Mado, like.
Oh yeah, because I was like, who is this for? And yes, AJ, he got that right at least.
Yeah, it was a dumb little moment, but it really made me laugh. And it also does set up such a great cut where, because Furio's crying in the car and Tony tells him to get over it, like get over his dad's death, and then it cuts right to Tony in therapy crying over Pyomai. So it is, they use it to great effect.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have a full-blown therapy scene where we actually dig into some of the events going on and like pick apart what it might mean psychologically and things like that, which I feel like a lot of the therapy scenes this season has been like, right, let's talk about what's happening in the plot rather than let's talk about what's happening in your actual brain, Tony. So it's pretty interesting.
Yes, yeah, and it's great how Melfi nails it, because she's like, well, they're talking about the sad clown, and Tony has mentioned that before, and she mentions she's never seen that. And I like that Melfi's confused, because she's like, well, usually when you get sad, you respond with rage. And it's because he's already responded in rage, as we saw when he killed Ralphie. So now he's just at the sadness part. But I like that she kind of picked that up. And then and then he starts just kind of going over Chris and his drug use, and then he talks about 9/11. What he says, what kind of God does this shit? So it is really a lot of like, poor me, Tony. But even though like we know that Tony has been fucking up on his own, but of course he's not going to ever admit that.
He does admit, though, that he's doubled his own dosage. So, because, like, yeah, we do this, and then I cut it off before the limp dick happens, and it's all grand. And she goes, well, first of all, that's not going to work.
Bad.
And, yeah, it's bad. Because he describes it as, like, an airplane. Like, you got to get the nose up with those extra milligrams, and then it'll be smooth sailing. Is this also where they get into animals? Because I think she goes like, after all, it is a horse, and he's like, what the fuck is the matter with you?
Oh yeah, and I forget if that's does it come? Do we have another Melfi scene?
Well,
Because
she
then he
does
also.
say,
Well, go ahead.
yeah. I was gonna say this is where she says like the only other time I saw you this emotional was about the ducks.
Oh wait,
So,
no,
I
it's
think this
it's
is the scene.
later because I think he says. Oh wait, no, I'm sorry. No, you're right. It was here. I was thinking
Yeah.
of later in the intervention when he yells, "I know what it's like to lose a pet," which I think
Yeah.
is great. But yeah, I was jumping ahead. But no, I think you're right. Yeah, it's in the scene here.
Yes, she points out that you haven't grieved in this way for people, but it's like your mother, your best friend. Who's she referring to? The best friend, Pussy? Is that?
Pussy. Yeah.
Yeah. And he points out, can't I just be sad for a horse without some touchy, feely, Freudian shit component to it? But it is interesting because, as she points out, the ducks embodied his feelings of dread about potentially losing his family. We talked about what Pyomai represents outside of being just a horse. It is really interesting because Tony is obviously, well, my read on it is he hates himself and he hates humanity because of all the things he's describing. What God would allow a world like this, but it's all down to people, really. But animals don't have that like guilt, that Catholic type guilt. They're actually pure and they're dumb. They haven't eaten from the fruit of knowledge or whatever. So I think in his mind, that's why they're more holy than people, and that's why he can grieve them. But obviously, he does grieve for other things through animals because he doesn't know how to grieve properly about those other things. So, for example, the girl who died, who represented his daughter, his Pyomai, etc., etc. So it's all good stuff. I think interesting.
Yeah, absolutely, and you're right. Like it's using the therapy scenes more for like thicker stuff about the storyline and what things represent rather than Tony just laying out some of his plans and what kind of advice he should get for crime or whatever. Usually that's been happening this season. So yeah, good stuff. And then we have Adriana with the FBI, and obviously something's up because Cosette died, and she sees they see a puppy that pulls up in a car, and then she breaks down over that. She does I wasn't sure if it was a revelation at first when she says that Chris is high all the time, but I guess they've been sending the flyers to their apartment for the rehab, so I guess they are aware of it.
Yeah, I mean, they would know, and much like his mob friends should know, just given how he's always driving to drug places to buy drugs, and you'd think he had a handle on how to buy drugs, but apparently he's really bad at it, because next scene we have Silvio and Paulie. They're waiting for him to pick up some fucking TVs or something, or drop off some TVs, right?
Yeah.
And trying to ring him to get him voicemail, just like with another friend of ours. But no, he's down driving around trying to get drugs, and he gets mugged and kicked around and beaten with a toy keyboard, which is some amazing sound effects that I guess they just grabbed there from the trash. It's a really fun scene. Another like step down the ladder for him. He gets literally his car taken away, and he yells, "Do you know who the fuck I'm with?" But like, no, you're not right now. You're not acting like it, so shut up, Chris.
It's so great when he gets beat with the toy. They're even like throwing the trash bags on him. And yeah, I mean, we've seen Chris when he beat up Yo-Yo Mendez or whatever his name was.
Yeah.
Although that was kind of coming off of a bad point for Chris because they heard that he shit himself on the dock. So, but yeah, the tides have turned. He's getting beat up. And then we have Carmilla and her parents over Tony's. And Tony's upset because the stupid wine from Italy, the cork's stuck in there, and then Carmela left the bag of giblets in the turkey. I don't know why. I guess she's got her mind on Furio. Is that what they're saying there?
I don't know what that bag is. I don't know how to cook a turkey. You tell me, Jim. Is that bad?
I mean, I don't know what it would do, but yeah, you're supposed to. When you buy a turkey, you kind of clean it first. You take there's like a neck that you take out, and yeah, there's a little bag of giblets that some people use for gravy. But yeah, you're supposed to take that shit out, not leave it in when you cook it.
Okay, cool. Because I was like, oh, it's a little bag of herbs. It's gonna spice up that turkey, but no, I guess not. Yeah, she's got her mind on the wine. He's trying to talk about Pyomai, I think. Right? No, he's talking about Justin. To be fair.
Okay.
Uh, um, but yeah, he also brings up Pyomai with Carmilla's dad, and he just keeps talking about this horse, man.
Yeah, he really is just laying it on thick to everyone about Pyomai and the horse that died. Then Chris gets brought home to Adriana by some other junkie dude who wants some money.
He's good people.
Yeah, and I like that Chris is getting like annoyed that she won't give him $30. But then
Yeah.
it turns into he starts beating her up because she
Yeah.
brings up rehab.
Yeah, and like at this point, I'm really like, fuck this guy, like
Oh, yeah.
fuck Christopher. And it's the thing this show does great all along is making you care about characters that do bad things. Because obviously we've been with Christopher for such a long time, but this is such a like deep hole for him to go in as far as his character, like because he does stuff like yell at her for not being able to have kids and then rush off, and but then he comes back like, oh, I'm sorry, let's get married in a few weeks, and then he beats her up, and I'm really like disgusted with who Christopher is right now, which I guess is what the show is going for.
Yeah, he beats her up. Then he like digs through her purse, takes her money, and fucking storms out to go get drugs. Apparently.
Yeah, at first I was like, oh, he's off to pay off that guy, but no, I mean he's got to get drugs. He's got to get those drugs, obviously. He does have drugs later, so.
And then Polly rescues the painting. I love the scene that there's just this little fire, and they're kind of just looking at it as they're about to like supposedly torch it. I assume there would be a better way to do this. They're just by the dumpster.
Maybe if you can put the lighter fluid on the painting because they put it like in front of it and they're like watching it, and Polly comes up like classy piece like this, horse with the trees, wooden frame, 25,000, 30,000 minimum, which is not accurate.
Yeah, I was thinking that because we even see in the previous episode what it was like $6,000 or something like that.
Yeah, which I said was already.
But even then,
although I will say. Yeah, even then. But I will say I was impressed with the craftsmanship behind the painting after all. So, because there were some other horse paintings there. This one's clearly better. So, fair enough. But 30 grand? I don't know. Maybe it's a bit much. And Polly's thought here is I would be honored to hang this on my wall. Not because, like, Tony's my man and I love him, but because it's got a classy fucking frame, man.
Yeah. It's got a classy frame. It looks nice. You see the trees and the horse? Then as we mentioned, this way Adriana goes to see Tony and Carm. She's got a big shiner from Christopher beating her up. And yeah, that's where she's talking about packing her stuff, maybe going to live with her aunt or whatever she says. Don't make any decisions you'll regret. It is interesting to see, like, it's obviously a big deal that he did this, but it's not that big of a deal. You know what I mean? Where they're just kind of calmly like, what? He did this? Damn, he's the drugs or whatever. Not like this dude that's in our family's a real piece of shit.
Yeah, I mean that's the old school thinking because it was already laid out seasons ago. Was it Richie April? Was that his name? It was a long time ago. Who said like, you put a ring on her finger, then you can smack her around as much as you want. Because he said, oh, you touched my niece or whatever. Oh, if you put a ring on her, then yeah, that's fine. And he's in the process of doing that. So
yeah, he says you want to lay your hands on her, give her your last name. Until then,
right.
It's my business or whatever the quote was.
Wow. Yeah.
Well, I mean, to be fair, he's engaged to her, so.
Yes. So it's a good reaction from Tony where he like they bring up, maybe rehab and that, and he's like, do I have to spell it out for you? We're a family. Oh, like we can't do that. But it is a big deal. He tries to call the phone, and that doesn't work. So
the shit got stolen by some Puerto Ricans.
Yep. So next scene, Polly hangs up the painting. Oh, great. This is fine. This is great. Just sitting down to watch a boxing game. I'm just gonna be so happy with this one. So Carmela then goes to Furio again, and AJ comes with. He says, "Why am I always having to come here?" It's an interesting formulation. It's almost a bit clunky. I wonder why he says it that way.
Yeah, I mean, I guess they're just kind of. I mean, I think Carmela even mentions it that even AJ's kind of catching on to what's going on. Like, even she's
Yeah.
like, even dumb AJ is starting to put things together and realize what's happening. Now, what does she bring to him? She's got an envelope. I
It's
vaguely.
some interior decorating ideas, and you should
Oh,
see what this
yeah,
mirror does or whatever. And he's like, you want coffee? I have this balsamic vinaigrette.
yeah. He gives her
So
the aged vinegar because he feels bad that he didn't have a present for her, and I mean, we saw that she was kind of disappointed as well.
yeah.
Um,
Did he bring the vinegar for her? Do you think?
I think he did.
I think he did as well, and I love that her reaction was, it was probably wasn't even for me, this shitty vinegar, and for him it's like aged 100 years in my family. Uh,
Yeah,
um,
yeah, I do think, and to him, I do think it's like it is a thoughtful,
yeah.
deep gift, deeper than you would think gift.
And he describes coming home and feeling like a visitor in his hometown, that life went on without him, but then he comes here and he doesn't feel like he belongs there either. And she's like, but you got a girlfriend. And he's like, no, there's no communication. And then they look at each other for a minute, like, oh, communication. We're communicating. Wow, it's amazing.
Yep, yep. There's the romance is building. Tony's none the
Mm-hmm.
wiser.
Yup.
Then what? They bring some of that wine, the Italian wine, to Junior's, and Svetlana's there.
Yeah, Svetlana is building a website, and I thought this was, as I expressed to you, I thought this was a hilarious Bill Gates joke when she goes like, he says like, "Yo, you building your own website?" And she's like, "What? I pay someone $35 an hour? If I get stuck, I call Bill." I thought she meant Bill Gates, like she's gonna call Bill Gates and get tips on how to build a website. So I thought that was a great joke. But it
But
was her fiance, Bill.
yeah, I was gonna say, isn't she just talking about her fiance?
Yes, she was. She was. But I thought it was really funny. And then I was like, oh, yeah, Bill. Because then later, Tony's like, when's Bill coming back? I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, right.
Well, and this was the story we had heard before we knew this character. Because remember, Irina was sad because, like, my sister, her leg fall off in the mall or whatever, and then her knight in white satin armor came and gave her leg back, and like
Yeah.
that was like the romantic storyline there.
Yes.
And then I don't know what the thing is about her adding ice to the wine. Isn't that like a peasant like piece of shit thing to do?
I don't know. I've never had ice in wine. I suppose it's probably is. Maybe that's the thing of like, oh, this aged Italian wine, but then Tony's like cheap homemade crap, and she's like needs ice, so no one's really enjoying these presents like they should. But yeah, they get to have a nice chat there about like, oh, it's amazing how great you can do with
Well,
no leg.
yeah, I mean, and as we see as this plays out, like, and as we've seen with Tony, Tony is attracted to strong women, like, and he's reading this as even what brings up like, yeah, even with your one leg, you still can do things on your own. Like he's impressed, and
Yeah.
I do like that she has that comment that's something like, "That's what I'm here for, like inspiration for people like you or whatever." I mean, it's a common thing we see in movies and stuff. It's always like, "Oh wow, look at the person in the wheelchair. They actually get up every day and live a life."
Well, not get up, but
Yeah,
yeah.
not get up, but like they wake up and
That's
they
offensive,
live.
probably.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, I'm being sarcastic, I'm being facetious, but yeah, Tony is reading some bullshit here because he's stupid, and he likes to. I don't know. I don't know what. I guess it's his mother somehow, but his mother wasn't that strong. She was just controlling. But I guess he's just reading the strength in a different way.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear any of that. The connection's really shit, and it's been shit the whole episode, and I've just been playing it off. But hey, you were a robot there, Jim, so I have no idea what you just said, and it's been like that for a bit.
Let me make a note real quick. Just make a note on the timestamp.
Yeah. Thank
Seems
you.
really
Because
cute.
yeah. It was at the end.
Should we reconnect real quick?
Yeah. Yeah, let's try that.
Okay.
Do I leave then, or what do we do?
I'll leave first.
Okay, cool. Hey, are you in the chat? I don't think so. Is anyone in the chat? I didn't check. Oh, this is fun, isn't it? The internet. Amazing stuff, isn't it? Jesus Christ. This is going to get cut out later, so if you're seeing it, feel privileged, because you are. I mean, you have an internet connection. What is that if not privileged? Says people are watching. Okay, cool. Cool. We're just waiting for Jim to pop back in here now.
And I'm back. What'd it do?
Dope. So I'm going to pop out, and then I'll pop back in. We'll see if it makes a difference.
All right. This is Jim. Jacob left. This is just YouTube exclusive stuff. See, if you're not on the podcast, you get this exclusive shit. Where Google Hangouts, they do a thing where they work for a while, and then but if you use them too much, they're all like, "We're not gonna work. You serious?" And then Google's like, "We're not gonna support that shit no more." But anyways, Sopranos, James Gandolfini. Wow, what a great loss. Can't believe he's not here anymore.
Yo.
Yo.
I don't know if this will, but we'll see.
Okay. Do you need to adjust your audio?
Yeah. This should be better.
Yeah, there we go. Cool. Okay. Let's try it.
It's still pretty bad. I can already hear it's not good. But yeah, because it's just like you're talking, and then I can hear that you stop talking. I'm like, I'm going to talk about the next scene now because I have no idea if he asked me a question or what, but then it was too bad. Okay.
All right.
Let's get back into it. So, Svetlana.
I was just basically saying he has this perceived strength with her, and Tony's attracted to women that he thinks have it all put together and kind of independent.
Yeah, because of course he's like, Bill's a lucky man. Oh, you Russians got all the angles. Come over here, bust your ass. And as she points out later, like, yeah, you Americans are weak. You would never expect anything to go wrong, but we always expect everything to go wrong. So then you're more happy when something goes right. It's an interesting philosophy. And I do like that she puts him in his place more than like most characters. Because even like Valentina or whatever, who is like mischievous, she's still like, Tony, come here. And she's actually, pointing out that you're a hypocrite, Tony. And I got my own shit to deal with.
Yeah. So now Paulie is then eyeing the painting. What's your read on what's he picking up here?
I think it's just he doesn't have the best relationship with Tony. I don't think it's anything to do with the eyes as such. Like, I think the problem is that it's Tony, right? Or what do you think?
Yeah. I mean, it's hard to gauge because he ends up, because as it goes through, he brings it and he makes the recommendation of making him like a general or a Napoleon type. But he also says he wants it, like he does have him do some adjustments to the face or the eyes. But yeah, I mean, I guess the best thing is that it does signify that they're kind of, not that they're combative to each other, but he doesn't have the same relationship that it seemed like they had in the earlier seasons.
Yeah, and in one way I wonder, how would Slovia react if he had this painting? But then I'm like, Silver would never take this painting and put it on his wall, so this is a uniquely Paulie situation. And his solution is so wonderful, going to get him to paint it over, and the guy he's talking to is like, what do you mean? Like, no, just not actually Napoleon. Come on, don't you get what I want here? And then at the end, he has it, and it's been repainted. Much like Tony going like, can we get Ralphie out of the picture? And then, of course, the picture arrives after he's literally taken Ralphie out of the picture. So then Paulie's like, can we also get Tony out of the picture, please? It's making me uncomfortable because this guy just murdered the other guy in the picture. I don't want him staring at me.
Yeah. Then we have Tony's getting some advice from Junior, and this has kind of been a common thing we've been seeing more and more. Tony has these sit downs to talk things out, use Junior to his best abilities, although Junior's basically saying you should just be killing Chris, like Chris should be dead.
Yeah, essentially, because he's like, oh, otherwise you might end up on trial like me. And they do like a subtle thing of like referencing how he might be not totally there, just with how he like holds the wine or whatever, right? I mean, he's a little bit off. He's like, what? Salute? Oh, right. Wine. Drink the wine.
Right.
But then he does give the advice of like, well, gotta get rid of him now. And Tony brings up, well, we got a guy in the AAA. Maybe we'll give him a call, get some help there. And I think Junior's just focused on, you don't want to be on trial like me, kid.
Well, plus Junior is old school because he does point out like, oh, AA rehab, and then you with a psychiatrist. So that stuff doesn't make sense to him. He's from a different time. And then we have Carmilla and Rosalie, and I mean it's a fairly big revelation that Rosalie did cheat on Jackie Sr. And like they kind of are talking about it here, and it didn't end until she felt guilty because then he went in the hospital because he had cancer. And Rosalie does point out that Carmilla is talking like she's 15, the way she's talking about the gifts and wondering if the vinegar was for her, or disappointed that she didn't get a present, and these glances they're having, and this kind of will they, won't they.
Yeah, and I think, I think Rosalie didn't cheat on him until this scene was needed, because Carmilla wouldn't have opened up about it if she didn't know that she had already cheated on her husband, the other girl. So she actually, that's why she can open up about it. But in Rosalie's mind, it's like, wait, what? You haven't fucked him yet? Because wait, no, then you shouldn't. Like, don't do it if you haven't done it already. Almost like, oh, you already did it. Well, you may as well keep fucking him then. But it's interesting because to Carmilla, this is, the sex part. I mean, she hasn't had sex with anyone else, but it's like, this is more important. Like, this is more like it's the emotional infidelity that means it's like real already, much like Furio is sensing, and that's why he has to go hide/cry in the car.
Yeah, and she even like mentions it's just kind of the feeling she gets when he looks at her. It's not so much just about the sex. It's this more of a connection that she's not getting from Tony. Then we have kind of the pre-intervention where the Dominic from the guy from AA who's in recovery for 4 years is kind of schooling them on what the process is going to be. Paulie calls him a scumbag, I think. And
two-time scumbag who's failed twice. He had remission, and he's like, there are no scumbags in recovery or whatever. No losers. This is like the rehearsal, like a rehearsal dinner before a wedding. You got to have the intervention rehearsal. And he lays out the rules and everything, and they're not going to follow them very good.
Yeah, no, they're not, it's not quite going to pick up too well. Anyone else been involved in an intervention before? Silvio, they once caught their daughter smoking pot. But, that's about it. That's as close as they come to it.
Yeah. And so another quick scene. Well, it's a scene coming up here that's really interesting. He's driving around, Tony, with Valentina, who's talking about like, oh, Ralphie's kid. I saw him from a distance once. Handsome boy. And that's like basically our relationship to this kid as well. Like, oh, yeah, there was a kid. Yeah, right. Okay, yeah. But I think he tries to talk about like, oh, yeah, he's going to have a rough time, physical therapy. And she's like, oh, yeah, I think I'll have the veal or whatever. Like going to a restaurant.
Yeah, he's going to Tavern on the Green, which I have heard of. I guess that is a famous restaurant. I guess apparently it is hard to get into because Tony's annoyed that he has to go and talk to Johnny Sack. And they do kind of squeeze in this Johnny Sack scene. And then, so what I wonder is Tony going into this meeting knowing that he's in the midst of setting up New York as the potential fall guy for Ralphie? Or does he get the idea from this interaction? Did I lose you?
Yes, but I'm back. It cut out there, but I heard the start of your question. And yes, I mean, I don't think he's going into it knowing, but I think by the end of it, like, this shows, like, the mob boss brain he does have, despite all the dumb stuff he sometimes does, like kill a captain over a horse. So I think he decides, like, in the moment, basically, because he is pissed off, like, he doesn't want to give up any money anyway, so he decides to do that, and then puts a perfect spin on it, because it's fucking genius.
Oh, yeah, and plus, Johnny's the one that kind of comes in all pissed off, talking about real estate, and kind of basically saying that they want more money or whatever. So, yeah, it pushes Tony in the right direction, I guess, here.
And I do wonder, like, why would he be obliged to give them money? Because it what is the relationship between these families? Because it's clearly been like, oh, we collaborate on that. And then it was like, well, that's an offshoot of that, so we should get a cut. And it was a little fishy, like, yeah, okay, I guess. But now this is a completely separate thing. Granted, the government guy that is involved or whatever, but it's like basically them saying, oh, you're on my Polly. You got to kick up to me. Which I don't know how much their relationship is like that, because New York is, more bigger and more important than New Jersey, at least to people in New York. So maybe that's the relationship between the families. Maybe that's going to change.
Yeah, seems like it. And then we have, we mentioned it before, when Paulie brings the painting to get touched up. I will say that I've been thinking more about doing the 2-finger point like Paulie does in real life now. Because you notice how he's always got the, the pinky and the main finger. He's never pointing with one finger.
Yeah.
So I've been kind of trying to do that in my real life. So thank you, Paulie.
That's good. So you got to incorporate more polyisms into your life. Get someone like Napoleon. You're right. He always got the little finger there wagging along. So we do get Tony coming in to a meeting there at the Bing, I think. Is this the Bing? This is the Bing, right?
Yeah, this is the back office of the Bing.
Yeah, it's just, I mean, obviously I'm familiar with it, but sometimes I'm like, is this Satriali's? Because I'm like, you only see the back of it. But yeah, obviously it's the Bing. And it's a little meeting. Oh,
I was just going to say, yeah, like it's kind of looks a little different because it's a little bit more packed, and the angles are maybe a little different than the standard one. So I could see how you wouldn't be sure at first.
Yeah, no, I mean, I do recognize the place. Looking at it, it's obviously the Bing, but I just mean the back rooms and the front rooms are so disconnected most of the time that I don't connect it up in my brain. But yeah, he comes in with a perfect spin, saying this HUD thing they were into, New York wanted a piece of it. I think they made Ralphie go away, but no one do anything. We don't do anything until we have all the facts. And it's genius because everyone's whispering about it. He knows on some level. He knows he's got to cover this up. It's the perfect cover because he said, like, whoever does anything is gonna answer to me. And now he gets to do that and, like, potentially make some sort of move. Now, I do wonder, will he actually benefit from starting a big beef with New York? Like, is that going to be a good thing? Or is it just, oh, I want to cover up that I murdered someone, so I'm making a bad decision here?
Yeah, it's hard to say because it feels like they're always teasing this New York versus New Jersey thing. I mean, even at the end of season 3, when Johnny comes up to Paulie and he says, Carmine asks about you, he's wonders about Tony's decisions as well. It's always been this, thing that's brimming below the surface. And I don't know, maybe this is going to push things over the top.
Yeah, looks like. So next is the intervention. Christopher gets to come out like, what the fuck? And this scene has so many great parts. I mean, it starts out fantastic where the guy who's leading it is like, oh, I'm Dominic, you don't know me. And Christopher's like, you're the guy who broke into Stu Leonard's that time. You stole all those pork loins. And he's like, yeah, but that's not why I'm here today.
So great. It's really great. And I mean, I thought it was interesting too that the first thing that Adriana brings up is that, like, his virility in bed and, like, how he's not he can't, I believe the quote is, perform the functions of a man. And it's kind of, I would almost expect that to be such a bigger reaction, but then it gets kind of caught up in the dog, because Tony can't get off of how another animal died, and it's almost like he's gonna kill him right there in the room in front of everyone.
Yeah, no, really, because the only reason this is happening is that Tony wouldn't do what he would do to anyone else and just off this guy. Obviously, I mean, Christopher's a made man as well at this point, so, like, he wouldn't really do that anyway, hopefully. I mean, well, clearly he would, but anyway, yes, it's the dog to Tony. That's a pretty big deal. I'm surprised he's not the one who gets up and starts kicking him around.
And I do want to call out that the actor here that plays Dominic, the one running the intervention, got to give a shout out to him because he was Casey Jones in the original Ninja Turtle movies back in 1990 or whatever the fuck it was.
Wow.
He's a character actor. I see him pop up and stuff, and I'm always like, that's the guy. That's the guy that was Casey Jones.
Wow. Oh yes, and also stole all those pork loins, so
Yeah.
he's all over the place. Um, yeah, this intervention gets out of hand. It's some great lines like Silvio reads he had his head in the toilet, and Tony's like, not that it matters, but I can't verify that he was sick at one point. But I know what it's like to lose a pet, and it just gets out
No,
of
it's
hand.
like
Everything.
that. It's coming back to Pyomai, of course, with Tony. I like Carmela bringing up the Livia's wake moment where Christopher was going on about, like, who's to say there's not another Livia Soprano out there? And then he has this long, like, pause as everyone just has to sit there while he's rambling and high.
Yeah.
But then, yeah, so of course, in Sopranos fashion, yeah, it ends with a nice beatdown, and they basically drag him to the rehab. Not yet. He's at the hospital at first, and then
Yeah.
what? He fell spraying for bugs, slipped on the kitchen counter spraying
Yes.
for ants.
And they get to have, like, with just Tony and Christopher, what would have been like is the real intervention where he goes, yeah, enjoy that aspirin, it's the last fucking drug you'll ever take. And this is where Christopher actually, like, because in the intervention it's very confrontational, so he of course is very, like, protective, and doesn't let it get to him, but it all, like, lands on him now. And Tony tells him to shut the fuck up, and we're gonna get you to that rehab. And guess what? Because you might flip if you don't get sober. So I'm gonna have Patsy just waiting around. You know what I'm saying? He's gonna off you if you go out of there. So it's pretty clear. I mean, it's a pretty good motivator, right?
Yeah.
to get off the drugs. I think this might actually work.
Yeah.
Even though it's obviously not something that the AA should adopt, it's still like, this might do the trick. Might actually get a few people sober.
Yeah, if it was anyone else, it'd be an intervention in the back of the head, and then yeah, Pat's gonna be a half a mile away, and then Chris, I mean, rightfully so. He does kind of break down, and what does he say? Just how did it get like this? How did it get so bad?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so good stuff. Then we have the scene with Svetlana. That's her name.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it's just the way it's lit from the start. You could already tell they're gonna fuck from it, basically. Like, because Andy, I was thinking about it. Then he actually even points out, like, you should see yourself there, half in the shadows with the smoke, and it's like they did put it together, like she's a painting in there, and he is very attracted to her, and she talks about, oh, you have good qualities, big and strong, and then they fuck.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. I was like, oh, it's kind of like weirdly lit, like with a lot of the shadows on their faces, and Tony does bring it up basically, and then yeah, then that undeniable charm of Tony Soprano, he bags yet another chick, like only Tony Soprano can, even though she's one-legged. He don't care. He's in it. He's in it literally.
Yeah, but it is great. I mean, the way it develops when he's like, oh yeah, when's Bill back? Oh, I'll call you. And she's like, I don't think so. Maybe
Yeah.
I'll call you. Probably not.
Yeah.
That's being a strong woman.
Yes, where in the end it's, because Tony he's just giving empty platitudes anyways, but then he's also hurt when he realized he was being used and not the one using someone else.
Yeah, exactly. So this was an interesting offshoot that I don't think will go anywhere else, but it is. I don't know. It is interesting. I don't know why this is happening with Tony at this particular time, given everything else going on. I guess, it's a distraction. Is that the main thing?
Yeah, I guess it's just it's a distraction, and then just another example of Tony Soprano kind of being taken aback by an independent woman, I guess. Like that's the thing. Like it's another Melfi in a weird way. Like not the same, obviously, but he's pointed that out a few times, like why he has these attractions to these women. But I don't know. Maybe something will happen. We'll see.
It does reflect. Don't say that, Jim. With that tone. But yeah, it does reflect of like them talking about the being the sad clown and whatever, because she gets to talk about how you Americans like lie on your psychiatry beds and do your complaining and crying, but you have everything and you get too much time to think and all of that stuff. So that is all a good perspective and on everything the show is about, basically, because he's like, yep, sounds like me.
And then we have Chris arriving at rehab, and there's the really fun clerk that's like enjoying that there are rules here and no chocolate, no caffeine, and they have to go through his bag, and no calls within the first 2 weeks. And I mean, Drea De Matteo is Adriana. Like, she's, I'm sure we've pointed this out before, but she's really good. And even after all this shit that Christopher does, like, I believe she's really, she loves him. She cares about him. She's broken up that he has to go through this, but he's just a piece of shit. So it's like, no, get away. Just get away from all this. Stop.
Yeah. Maybe you could have made it the first 2 months or 6 months. There's no calls. Obviously, the wedding's postponed. They were supposed to get married in 3 weeks, so that's off for now. Good. Maybe we'll postpone it indefinitely. I guess we'll see. But it is good that he gets into rehab at least.
And I guess it is funny. I wasn't even thinking about it till now, kind of skimming over the scene again. Patsy's the one there with them, and he's kind of like consoling her as well. But also, Tony told us that the main reason why he's there is to kill Christopher if he fucks this up, basically.
Yes. And then we come into the ending bit here, which is an interesting montage, basically, of Furio sitting alone at home. And then what does the note from Carmilla say? I'm at a hotel or whatever. I'll see you later.
Yeah, I don't know if they were kind of teasing us where I guess I was maybe waiting to see that maybe the camera was going to pan over and she was with him.
Yeah.
But yeah, because it was strange that she's just at a hotel, AJ's at a friend's, but then we intercut between Tony reheating food that Carmilla made, but then Furio's kind of making his own kind of gourmet Italian dinner, and they're both having their dinner alone, but I guess Furio is more embodying the strong silent type than Tony is.
Yeah, I even forgot that was the title of the episode. What does the title refer to, you think? Is there a more obvious reference besides this bit?
It's hard to say. I mean, I guess the stuff I read on Wiki, I don't want to try to take this as my own, but they mention that, of course, the Gary Cooper thing, which Tony's brought up a few times, specifically in the pilot. Tony's unknown rival for Carmilla, Furio. Tony keeping Ralph's murder a secret, and then also mentioning that Svetlana, she doesn't talk much, but she has this tenacity and spunk, and he finds beauty in her strength. So
okay,
two different
makes
ways
sense
there.
I suppose it's also Fury. I mean, that's why we can't have seen his attraction too much to Carmilla, because he's like stone face all the time and all of that. But on the inside, what's happening there? Much like Tony doesn't display what he actually feels on the inside, except when he punches walls, as Melfi points out. They do cut this really interesting because they're it's like they're having dinner together, right? Sort of. Like cutting back and forth.
And also, I feel like it's another. I've brought these up. I brought this scene up a few times now. It's yet another version. Like, typically, Tony's doing this while Carmilla's sitting there, clipping coupons or reading the paper or whatever, and they have this silent, I guess, truce or whatever. But now it's like he's just literally alone. He's still got his leftovers that he gets to heat up and kind of like mosey around the kitchen as he's getting his food together, but now he's by himself. So I think that's important.
And speaking of being alone, we do end up with Paulie Walnuts putting up the new version of the picture. What an improvement. He sits down in his chair, which is covered in plastic, and just the layout of the place proves the truth that has been mentioned previously in the season, that don't have kids, don't have a family, because it's such like a bachelor weird place where you put the chair in the middle of the room and then the TV. You just need the one chair. That's fine. Wrap it in plastic. I don't give a shit. And but have a classy $30,000 painting on the wall. That's good. But he kind of turns to it like, huh? Is it still you, Tony? And then it zooms in on the eyes there. I mean, it is still the same eyes, right? That's
I'm
how
actually
I read it. Is it
looking
not?
at it right now. That's what I wanted to see. I wanted to see if the eyes are different or not.
I believe them to be the same.
It's an interesting thing to choose to end on because it does seem like the Furio Tony parallel would be where you'd want to end, but they kind of come back with Tony. I come back with Paulie for some reason. All right, let me see.
I did actually grab some screenshots earlier, and the eyes are definitely the same.
They are.
Yeah. So he's still like it's still the same gaze coming out from this, stronger chin, maybe nicer outfit, but yeah, it's the same eyes making you uncomfortable still. It's really interesting and funny.
Let me see. Oh yeah. They're pretty. It's pretty much the same. And yeah, guess what? Tony's still watching over him. It's hard to see what to read from this, but I love it.
Well, it's the classic thing of a painting on the wall that follows you with its eyes, and now it's also your mob boss who you may have ratted out to New York. I mean, things are escalating with New York, so like he's already buddying up with Johnny Sacks, and maybe, because that was all about Ralphie for a bit, but Ralphie's out of the picture, so now I wonder who's Paulie going to be loyal to. Is Tony or New York? Because I feel like he's going to have to make some sort of choice there. And then if he makes the wrong choice, Tony's going to jump out of the picture and murder him.
Yeah, and it's interesting, too, because I agree that he brings it to get touched up to kind of disconnect it a bit from Tony, his boss, but he makes him a general, where it's like he's almost even more literally like a leader now. So I guess it's a weird, I guess, Freudian choice by Paulie.
Very true. Very true. That is the end of the episode. We zoom in on the eye there and fade to black. It's a really good episode. I think these two were a very strong sort of combo, hitting you first with, Ralphie's demise and then the intervention, which is very funny, but also very sad, and all the other stuff developing in this episode, kind of showing where, last episode we were like, oh, there's 4 episodes left in the season. And now I'm like, fuck yeah, I'm getting hyped for these episodes. What might happen next?
Yeah, absolutely. Make sure you send your thoughts on over to us at showswhatyouknowshow@gmail.com. And please, if you're so inclined, submit a review on both our Cut to Black Sopranos sit-down feed and our Shows What You Know feed, if you can. Really helps us out. And check out more from Jacob at awesomepedia.org and more from myself at jimandthem.com. But the most important thing...
What's that? What's that, Jim?
Cut to black.